Okay, I'll call the meeting for Monday, December 2nd, 2024, 6:30. The select board meeting. In person, yeah.
Already signed.
Call the order. Review agenda for additional removal, adjustments, additions, any items for 1 VSA through 12. Valerie, got any additions or removals on the agenda?
She shakes her head. She's frozen.
Yeah, she's frozen.
She doesn't.
Or she's very still.
Right. She's trying to trick us.
Do you have to unmute her?
No, she's a co-host, so she should be able to.
Okay.
Thank you.
It looks like she's gonna log in again.
And she's gone.
She's
I don't think she does.
We'll just
Okay,
move on.
overview of the Zoom minutes, operations and procedures, rule for participation, mute your
There she's-
microphone.
She's blinking now.
Okay, Valerie, everything all set with the agenda, no removal or adjustments? Okay, thank you. All righty, and be recognized by the chair for number 2. Public forum, 5 minutes per person to speak on something that's not on the agenda. Anybody want to speak? Jimmy, yes.
Just want to publicly thank Valerie for her service all these years. We know she'll be getting done soon. Did a great job. She's the glue that held you guys together.
She's been the glue and the clamp and everything.
Does that mean we're gonna fall apart when she's gone?
Yeah.
I'll just bring some more straps. Hold us together. Yes, I
Well,
can
thank you,
echo
Jimmy.
that, yes. She's been a great asset to this town. Okay, anything else? Everybody? Okay, department head roundtable, anybody out there? Taylor, you want to speak on something on department head, or you want to wait?
No, I don't. I have nothing to talk about. We've been on break anyways.
Okay, all right, thank you. Frida, anything you want to add to the grant?
Well, thank you for the invite this evening. I could go on and on about grants, but I won't do that. Just here to talk about the agenda specific grant items and offer input if requested or answer questions if they come up.
Okay,
Super, thank you.
thank you. Consent agenda number 4. Number 1 is authorize removal of former town treasurer Justin Mover as an authorized signer from the National Bank of Middleborough.
Eric.
Yeah, you see.
Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. Apologize. I talked to you out there. You told me everything was going.
This is why I'm hiding back there.
Go ahead. Sorry, Eric. Thank you, Baker. Go ahead. And I didn't do Sharon either. I apologize to both of you. I talked to you out there. Okay, I got everything. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing new really, just started winter now, so did a couple plows and got a new guy up on the mountain, so everybody be patient with him, training him up there, so when I get done, at least there'll be somebody up there that, will do it, so he's working out good so far. And then we had a couple of minor maintenance stuff we had to do today. And that's about it, nothing too major.
Okay, well, thank you. And also, remind everybody that winter parking ban is
Yeah,
in effect.
and the basketball hoops need to
The
be
basketball
moved.
hoops need to be moved off the street. Anything else that you park on the street will get moved. Okay, and if you live on Main Street above the apartments, above the stores, you do need a permit. You get that here at the town offices to park on the back of the park. It just doesn't come natural, right? Sharon, if I'm right there on that?
Right, but it's only when the parking.
Only when the parking light is on. But the parking light doesn't cover all the whole town, just the Main Street,
Just me.
correct?
Right.
Okay, Sharon, you're up next.
It's a new month. The auditors will be back next week to work on the last 2 years, so hopefully we'll have an audit. Hopefully by the beginning of January, mid-January, up to date.
Last 2 years?
Yes, we're 2 years behind. So we couldn't do it as one audit. We do 2 years as one audit. So we can be as up to date as possible.
Okay, you ready? Anybody else up there? No, Bruce talked to me earlier, he's not, so.
And Brett is unable to join us this
Right,
evening.
he told me that, so, okay, thank you. Authorized consent agenda, authorized removal of former town treasurer Justin Boobier as an authorized signer from the National Bank of Middlebury Bank account. Number two, approve curb cut access permit application 2024-05 DA to Dave Sharp, 1201 Meehan Road per the foreman's recommendations. Authorized submission of a grant application to the Vermont Municipal Highway and Stormwater Mitigation Program for approximately $500,000 to support the construction of a Basin Street Improvement Project. Number four, authorized submission of a grant application to the National Park Service Land and Water Conservation Fund for funds to support the Hub Teen Center Skate Park Project. Number five, authorized submission of a step two planning loan application to the Vermont Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund, the Bristol East Water Line Replacement Design and sign the loan application. What is your pleasure on
So
those?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve all the consent agenda. Any discussion on any other of the 5 items?
I have a question for number 3.
Yeah.
So this is a grant application. Does it have a match?
Valerie, your question? I don't know that question. Is there a match to that, Valerie?
20%.
20%
Can that be made with other,
in kind or anything?
other
It
grants?
depends. It could also be made with other grant funds. Some allow for in-kind, some don't. And I don't recall specifically about the Transportation Alternatives Program or actually this other one, the Stormwater Program. But in any case, we'll more than meet a 20% match.
So is this a project that we've decided to do in a certain time frame already? Or is this on the table to talk about as far as all the other big projects?
This is,
Brazil.
we have a bunch of other grants for this project. This is a
We have
project.
3
that
already, yeah.
Once the money's lined up, the project's gonna go.
Okay,
And it's a multi-year project,
It's a multi-year.
multi-phase project.
Hey, Val.
And we have a project manager who's working on it currently.
Val, the 2 current contracts, is that funds that we've already expended? Where it says current contracts?
Mm-hmm.
We have not expended them yet. They're actually, we're still pretty early in the process.
Okay.
This is something we've been working on for
At least
4 or
2.
5 years.
Yeah.
right. I know that. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is how it lines up with the other big projects that we're doing, because we don't have to do them all at once. So like, are they prioritized? Like, we can't open Briggs Hill unless we fix it, but this one is functioning, right? It isn't.
Yeah,
in
but this money
danger.
can't go towards Briggs Hill.
It can't.
No.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a very high priority.
Mhm.
It has been for a long time, and the town has put a lot of effort to get it to this point.
Yeah.
I
So
recommend keeping it going.
So it's a project that's already going on and we will budget for it. We'll see it in this budget that we're going to be looking at.
They were mainly trying to get it all funded
By
through,
grants.
through other sources. Hoping not
Definitely,
to
right.
take very much out of our,
If you take anything, it'll probably out of the capital roads, a little bit out of that, but it won't come out of the general highway budget. I
Okay,
don't believe. At this time, the board hasn't authorized to spend any money out of the regular budget of the highway department.
right. The reason I'm asking these questions is just because once you start the project, you're not going to stop it, right? So
Well,
that's what I
also,
want to know, how far along
that
we are.
we'll have other funding sources to tap into when the time comes and over phases. We have the Sidewalk Reserve Fund, we have the Capital Roads Fund, and possibly some of the undesignated fund balance available when the time comes. As Peter said, it's going to take several years, so we can plan for this.
Right, and this is a priority because it's our only access to the core sewer system.
Right,
And so it's not just a project where it's fixing a road that's beyond the grade that it should be for the residents.
right.
It's the only way we can get down to the core sewer. So that's why it's very high on the priority. It just happens to be a complex project because of how steep the road is.
Right.
that, and it includes drainage.
Right from Main
Yeah.
Street, all of Main Street water goes past that through there.
Mhm.
Yes. Okay. Any more questions, Jessica, on that?
Also, a question for number 4. Again, is there a match to this one? A town match to this one, Valerie? Number 4?
It's the skate park.
50/50 match.
I think Taylor's going to give more of a briefing on that on the number.
Yeah, I don't think that's it.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
No, she's gonna. That was somewhere.
She's
No,
doing number
this is
one
the
under
only one.
regular business.
Yeah, right here, number one, regular business.
Which is different.
Different.
Yeah.
She's gonna do, that's the
Yeah,
design part of it.
That's correct. Yeah,
But
this
that's a
is
design-
just for,
this-
for the same project. It's just applying for grant funds to support the construction of the project.
Can we use other grant funds for the match on that as well,
Unknown.
if we get them?
Did you
Unknown.
say it was 50%?
Mhm.
A 50/50 match is required, yeah. It says it's not known yet if matching funds can come from other grants. Matching funds would also be proposed to come from the Recreation Equipment and Facilities Reserve Fund. That's just reading from the grant summary document.
Okay, that's what it says. I didn't see that in here. That's all. So,
I mean, I like grants. It's just that when you have all of these matches, when you get them, then the town is on the hook to
Correct.
pay that in that year. That's my only
Yep.
concern is just that. So, but we have the funding, Valerie, that we would be able to use if we got the grant.
I believe so. And especially most of these will occur over more than 1 year, so they can be phased.
We also allocated ARPA money for that.
as far as I can't remember.
I can't remember the exact
Is it
amount.
75?
Yeah, Taylor says ARPA funds and in kind for the match.
Okay.
Do we know, Taylor or Val, when we'll have a amount for that particular one? It says to be determined. That would obviously play a role with what our match is gonna be. Okay,
By the
Um,
deadline.
right. I mean, I don't think we can approve a grant application without an amount being there.
It makes me uneasy, that's for sure. I mean, I support the project. I
Yeah.
support all of these things. It's just a question of what do you do in year one versus year two versus year three? Like,
Right.
we have the ability to prioritize, and these are all really big projects. And if we get ourselves committed to them, then we don't really have choices anymore. And I guess
What-
that's what I'm trying to figure out is the amount and the
Yeah.
timing of
One
everything.
detail about this is for the skate park, it's a pre-application. And so once a pre-applicant gets past that stage, there's no obligation to proceed with a final application. If you just-
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
pre-
and it might not
pre-decide-
even make the cut because of some other uncertainties. It might not make the cut for a final application. So this is just pre-application. and It's due by December 13th, so it's a very short window.
Okay,
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Yeah. all right, that sounds good.
Thank you, Valerie.
Okay, now I feel more comfortable.
Anything else? We'll go to the order of those 5. I just want to know number one, Justin got done in April. Why is it taking this long? I'm just gonna ask that question, but
It's been taking money out of the account, maybe it
No,
wasn't
no.
an issue.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think,
that's-
I thought it was odd that we
You're right.
waited this long to do it.
well,
as
it probably fell off the radar and it just,
Yeah.
the bank
Yeah.
requires
Yeah.
minutes to be able to make a change like that.
Okay.
all right. Are you hearing no more questions? All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same? Okay. Clovers. Regular business, continue. Wait, a minute. First of all, I want to say, I missed it at the beginning. If you're on the chat, come into the chat or raise your hand and Ian will recognize you and bring you in. We're having you in the waiting room now because we got hacked a few weeks ago. And it wasn't a pretty site. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
Very
just,
exciting.
do the raise hand thing through Zoom or just do the chat and I'll ask for you to unmute,
Okay.
just to keep it a little bit cleaner.
Continual consideration of possible acceptance of the Bristol Hub Skate Park design proposal from Northeastern Taylor Welch Plant and give her presentation. Taylor, you're up. You were here 2 weeks ago and gave us a briefing. We asked you to go back and look for a few questions. I understand you found all the good answers.
Yes, so I'm gonna stay with my camera off. I was homesick today, so I'm not the most put together in my, or just my laptop stack, 'cause I forgot my charger at the hub and I didn't go because I was sick, et cetera, et cetera. So I reached out to the references and they all came back glowing. Several were saying these are the only people we would recommend working with in the industry. They've worked on several different projects through as themselves and then through their previous companies that they worked for, and just came with glowing remarks. And I spoke with Chris today about the engineering, and he said that some towns just require architectural or landscape architects to oversee the design, so that's included in their quote. However, they have an engineering firm they work with, but it was not included in their initial quote, so we could have their engineering firm or ours, but I think setting aside some money for that is a good idea.
Do we know what that money will be? That engineering part, a piece of it?
I don't know exactly. No, I think I know at one point we were saying set aside 10,000 just in case that's what it costs, but I didn't get the actual figure from him.
So their quote doesn't include engineering services. That'll be above and beyond that.
Correct. Their quote includes working with the landscape architect. He said that some towns just working with the landscape architect is what is required, and then some require engineering. We didn't stipulate in our RFP that specifically they had to work with an engineering firm.
Okay with that? I mean, obviously we know their quote was
Considerably less.
yes. So I think that our discussion last time was
We had some buffer, right?
if we found out
We had
that
about
Go ahead.
We had about 70,000 worth of buffer between theirs and the next quote. It was 20,000 versus 90,000 just for that. Mhm.
Okay. Frida, you had something in the chat. Do you want to speak on that?
Sure. Thank you, guys. This is, as we said, the pre-application for the funds for the skate park will be due December 13th. I am planning to chat further with Taylor to kind of hammer out the budget a little more and see what we have for funds, what we have proposed expenditures for the engineering like you're just discussing now. So to kind of see where we're at. We don't really know right now, but to throw a guesstimate out there, and sorry, Taylor, to put us both on the spot like this, but I'm thinking for that grant, we would be applying for maybe 250 to possibly 300,000.
Okay.
okay. So that would be, yeah, you're putting Frida, you're putting that into the LWCF grant application. Okay.
Yeah, they're sort of tied together because this project is currently in the process of moving forward, and we are desperately seeking as many grant funds as we can. So it would be wise of us to apply, even if we don't get it.
That sounds good.
The formal application for that grant, also just for reference, where we have to put in the actual budget, is until March.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how to do it.
And so we should also have a budget for this project from the design by March. So we'll also have a concrete figure from this, the design process. We don't know how much skate park will actually cost until we do this.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Put mine on silent. Okay. All righty. Anything else for the questions from Taylor, or anything?
No, but I'd make a motion to accept Nor'easter's skate park design proposal.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Accept Taylor's recommendation on Northeastern.
Who seconded that?
Jessica.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, hearing no more discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? I'm abstaining, and I explained it earlier, because I'll be voting on this as a rec club member. So.
Okay.
Okay, number 2, municipal energy realist program grant award update and next steps. The energy committee members?
You
Come on.
you got elected, huh? But everybody else abandoned you.
So the town received a MERC grant in the amount of $325,853 to make Holly Hall more energy efficient and durable over time. It was less than the $499 that we applied for.
But that was the max, right?
Yeah, 500 was the max, so.
So we did it, all right.
Yeah, definitely. So we are meeting, so Ian and myself and Frida and Val and David Flashenheim are meeting tomorrow morning with Asher Nelson, who was the engineer that we worked on when we were putting the grant together, just to kind of what are our next steps, you know, now that we have less money than we thought, you know, just what are we going to prioritize to be able to, you know, get as much done. So the grant goes from December of this year to December of 2026. So we have 2 years to do it. So
Yeah,
so
it's ARPA funds.
yeah, so that goes by fast. So we want to jump on it and just start planning what
Yeah.
we're going to do. So our first meeting will be tomorrow morning. So once we kind of hash out, you know, what we're going to do. Oh, Matt Sharp is also going to attend. to help
Yeah,
us out.
so he's working on a very similar grant that the library received, very similar work, air systems, insulation, things like that. And so he's a part of that. We invited him to be a part of this as well. And David in this group and the energy committee will also be working on the library one, and possibly Allison too.
So we're going to try to see, you know,
Yeah.
what we can do, you know, economies of scale if we're doing both projects at the same time.
Because there's a lot of similarities and overlap.
That's a good idea.
So
Yeah,
we
exactly.
will,
Maybe one
after
contractor.
we get together and just kind of figure out where we're gonna go, we'll keep you guys, you know, informed on what we're doing.
Yeah.
So what did you get for money?
325,853.
But 52
Nice
cents.
round number.
I know. It's like,
Oh, I just rounded it.
Yeah.
325,853.
yeah, so it's quite a lot different than what we wanted to get. We essentially, our budget, we picked the more expensive one. The board did, which was 575. We were going to kick in 75,000. This was the building out the walls upstairs. So because we don't have that full amount, we sort of have brought Asher in as a consultant to sort of look at what he put together in a very short amount of time to sort of see what our options are. And then Matt's involved because he's obviously with Efficiency Vermont and just his own background, he's very experienced with that kind of work. And so one of the biggest concerns is sort of how much insulating can we do in this building that will then completely change how air moves and moisture moves in the building? Are we going to create a problem that's going to, you know, come back to us in 10 years or 20 years because we're putting in these systems? So that's one of the big things. So having as many people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And Asher is part of that, obviously, with Vermont Integrated Architecture is, I think, a really good thing.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So there are two things associated with this agenda item. One is we need to decide whether to accept the reduced grant award, and I presume we will. So that's one thing. And then the other is to let you know that with our meeting with Asher tomorrow, we hope to engage him for his services in a broader sense. It's going to require more of his time and his company's time. And so we want to invite him to submit a cost proposal for his services. Up until now, or up until recently, the Regional Planning Commission paid for their services, but that's not the case right now. So if we want to continue to benefit from their experience and their recommendations, I think we should be prepared to compensate for their time. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I just want to give you a heads up that that's what we expect.
And that's part of our meeting, our goal, one of our goals of the meeting tomorrow is to understand, you know, what that might be and to get him kicked off on putting something together for us.
One of the big things with the grant, since we didn't get the full amount, is that there is now language on their website, which talks about how towns, because it happened to a lot of towns, how towns aren't held to the full scope of work that was presented. Even though the scope of work didn't change, but the dollar amount changed, we're not expected to do the full thing. And that language is on the website and sort of details that. So we do have room to be able to
scale
alter
back
it.
a little.
Exactly, yes.
There's one caveat to that, though, is that if you're scaling back, they want you to still prioritize like building envelope insulation and those things, like, so ventilation is further down, and that's one part of our scope for for Holly Hall, so.
Yep.
So we have to make sure that we get the building envelope insulated and all those kind of weathers, weathers.
I think
for
the way that they prioritized it was building envelope, then HVAC, then lighting, and then other. So you have to go in kind of in that order.
Until the money runs out.
Right.
And then-
Which now that we have less, will be sooner.
Right.
But I mean,
But still,
I think that-
$325,000.
Yeah.
there's nothing
We
to
can,
sneeze
we
at.
can do a lot of work.
Well, would there be a reason we would reject the agreement, the grant?
We've already,
No.
Yeah.
we've already.
Pencil it on, so to speak.
But also, I mean, we'll make the changes we can and then apply for more grants to do more
Right.
work later.
And the
Yeah.
stuff on the low hanging fruit, you can, like the lighting, you could do that anyway, but insulating the walls,
Right.
and get those things done.
Right.
Big ticket items and the stuff.
Yeah, the insulation and the ventilation.
Are the two biggies.
Yeah.
The lighting, you can always change at any time.
And similar,
And it won't affect whether you've got it insulated well or not insulated.
right. And similar happenings over at the library. I mean, the initial idea for this grant was to do 3 buildings. But then when we realized the costs involved, it was scaled back just to Holly Hall. And now it's been scaled back further, unfortunately, but I think we'll adapt to this. But we're not the only town experiencing this. I think
Right.
they only had a certain amount of money and it had to go to a lot of towns.
A lot of old buildings.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for all of your work
Yeah.
on
Thank
this.
you. So, number 2, do we entertain a motion on that?
Yeah, I guess we need an official motion,
Yeah.
just so we have it. So I make a motion to accept the grant agreement or the, what do you call it? Let's see.
I think
The
that's
grant,
what's
the
called,
grant award.
Grant
Grant
award.
award update, next steps. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Is there a second to that? Michelle, second that, Valerie? You didn't hear?
That was very enthusiastic.
Yeah, I know it was.
Come on now.
Any more discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, now he's have it. Okay.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Wait a few minutes.
See you both tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't we jump down, because we can't start the 7 PM public hearing until 7 PM.
So-
We're
Wow.
we're a minute away.
Well, I got 3 of by there, so I'm just looking.
6:59.
Okay, we'll just
Yeah.
wait a second.
By the time you're done reading, it'll be 7.
There we go. Read slow. 7 PM, public hearing, use of community development block grant funds for firehouse apartments and other community development initiatives. Addison Housing Works. This is, I believe, it's already over there.
Final public hearing.
Final public hearing for this
Mhm.
firehouse apartments that are really a lot of good quality over there.
So a number of documents were posted to the town's website related to this topic, including some financial information, some architectural designs, and benefits information. And Elise Schanbacker is here, tuned in from Addison Housing Works to answer any questions.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hey,
Hello there. Hi.
any questions from the board?
Yeah, just how'd it go? How's it
Yeah.
going? How are the people in there? And I'm assuming everybody's still there and people haven't left and.
Yeah, it's going well. The whole project was completed on time, slightly under budget, kind of unheard of today. We're actually returning a little bit of money to the funders. And it's fully occupied. You may know 3/4 of the units are low income units, which are 60% or less of area median income, which is about $40,000 for a single individual. So, somebody working full-time downtown retail could live in one of those units. And then the other 1/4 of the units, so 5 units, middle income housing. So it's mixed income. We've had a lot of great feedback about the building. And despite, some run-of-the-mill property management issues and a little bit of a rocky start with the heat pumps, everything right now is going well.
Good.
Do you have a rough number of applicants versus units you had?
Our whole wait list for all of our apartments, we have 350 apartments. The whole wait list is about 200 households. I don't know what the breakdown is for families specifically at Firehouse, but I want to say that we had probably 3 applications for every available unit, and that was just, you know, in the 3 months where we were accepting applications to lease up the building.
Okay,
I'm sharing my screen that shows their overall, at least early on, budget figures and how this hearing is specifically for the Vermont Community Development Program funding, which was $585,000 that had to be processed through the town. But that's just one part of many other pieces of funding that were required to make this project work. So a lot of work went into making this project happen on a part of a lot of people.
Thanks, Valerie. Yeah, and especially Valerie, and also just the support from the select board. We absolutely could not make this happen, and towns that weren't willing to work with us, and you know, Bristol especially went above and beyond to get us the 6 acres that we needed to make the zoning work for 20 apartments. So from start to finish, it's just been a really great project, and we really appreciate working with the town of Bristol, and hopefully someday we'll maybe be able to do another one.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I think we have,
Any comments from the, out in the Zoom land or in the public here?
Yeah.
Any?
it's Brian Plant who's on, he's one of the residents.
Okay, Brian?
also
Yeah,
on
I
our
figured I'd
equity
pop
committee.
in, see, give my 2 cents. Full disclosure, I am on the board of directors for Addison Housing, but that's fairly new development. But as far as, we love it over here. I mean, I can't necessarily speak for absolutely everybody over here, but I mean, most of us are really grateful that this place exists. We love how welcoming Bristol has been. I mean, I've tried, I think I've shopped at just about every location there is and had dinner or a meal from some, from some location. And I hope you guys, you consider doing more in the future if opportunities arise, because there's definitely a need out there. And now that I'm give you full, a little history. I've come out of homelessness, so I'm one of the folks on the lower income spectrum. But now I'm learning how things work, kind of behind the scenes from the businesses and nonprofit side. And it's amazing anything actually gets done and these things come together.
Right.
And that's not necessarily knock on anything. It's just the need is great, the resources are finite, and I try to count my blessings that I'm lucked out and got one of these places, and try to give back where I can. In fact, in a chance meeting with Ian, actually afforded me the opportunity to join the equity committee, and I've attended some meetings with the school board's community engagement committee that give input and feedback from demographics they don't normally hear from. So trying to jump into the the community as much as I can.
Okay,
Thank you.
That's
thank you,
great.
Brian.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Brian.
Brian.
Any comments from the board? It's been a good project. It's long overdue. And yeah, Bristol could use a lot more of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, when can we build the next one?
Find some land.
Soon, I hope.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
thank you, Lace.
Thank
Any
you.
more
Thank you.
comments out from Zoom or here? No. Okay. I'll close the public hearing part of this community development block grant for funds for Firehouse Apartments. And consider it closed for now.
Thank you, Elise.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Elise.
everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah,
And yeah, Valerie, your part in this, and I know behind the scenes must be in the treasurer's office and clerk's office. It's, for a small staff, it went well. And you probably pounded your head against the wall some days and going, why did we do this? But it's, like I said, it's long overdue.
Was it a success?
Any success, yeah. Okay, review and possible adoption of a new livestock running at large ordinance, discussion of horses running at large on Carlston Road. And I'm going to just preface to the community here, viewers here are on Zoom and in the audience, that this is an ordinance that we're considering. Jessica has worked a lot on this. And it's not just gonna be for certain section of town. If we pass it, it'll be for mostly more than just horses. Dog, cows,
Just livestock.
livestock,
This,
dogs and
all
cats.
inclusive.
all inclusive. And not just Carlson Road, it'll be Upper Notch. If Jimmy's got a cow out there running around, it'll be there or anywhere else. So let's keep it to a discussion of that, okay? The board first, Jessica, if you want to go over what you've written in your policy.
Well, I didn't write very much. What I did was I took existing ordinances and I looked to see where the text was similar and where it was different. Most of them seem to be written from sort of a common format. So I simply took that and adapted it for Bristol. So.
Okay.
So it's pretty close to the one that they adopted in New Haven, and there were a couple others that I looked at. The only thing that we decided that we didn't want, that some of them have, is this provision where the police have to impound the livestock and like keep them somewhere. And you know, when we got feedback from Bruce, he said that that's just not viable.
He's got a cage at the police office that puts dogs in. We can't get a cage, put a
Right.
500-pound bull in or something.
So what we did, instead of having that part of the ordinance, I cut that part and we kept the fine part of the ordinance, but we tried to make it so that, you know, people have accidents, like things happen, right? And so we tried to make it that if there's a first instance, you receive a warning, and that Bruce has discretion, so that like if you fixed the fence and you did everything you could, but a tree fell on it and took out a section of fence, you know, even though you're technically in violation, that he would have the ability to use his judgment to say, you know, if people were trying to maintain the fencing and something happened. So you can see that it sort of steps up as you go, with the idea being that, you know, people will have some things happen. And then also it's authorized in that amount, but it doesn't have to be that amount. So Bruce will be able to use his judgment.
Okay. When you said fencing, is there anything in here that we identify as a fence?
Yes, so let's see.
And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to read it completely, so.
Right, so I tried to take out like the extra wording, so that it's just looking at the livestock, and then.
If you go to remedial action.
Yeah, remedial action says not limited to construction or repair of fences.
Right.
Where did it?
And
What are
so.
styes?
For pigsty.
I'm reading that going, what the hell is that mean? Because I'm thinking and I'm thinking, is this spelled wrong? Is this supposed to be stalls?
And you need a strong one because pigs are smart. But anyway, so this is the reasonable measures to contain the animal, such as maintaining strong and undamaged fences or pens, and the animal accidentally gets loose. So like if somebody is doing to the best of their effort what Bruce is saying, like, I can see that you've built a fence, but a tree fell on it, for example, that's an instance where he might say you need to fix it by this date, but not necessarily assign a fine to it. So he has that flexibility.
Okay. Has Bruce had a chance to run his eyes across this?
I don't know if Valerie shared it with him, but it was based on his feedback.
Okay.
So he looked at the New Haven one and said what he thought was good about it and what he thought would be problematic. And so the changes I made were based on his feedback.
The blue highlighting and the cross out reflect his feedback.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So at the moment, are we looking under enforcement officer and definitions? So it's talking about law enforcement officer, animal control officer, which is also the police department,
right,
and other person. Are we just looking to have the police department handle this at the moment?
Well, we kept it like this with the idea that even if there's a change later on, so, you know, we had the what did you call the dog catcher or
Dog
whatever?
warden.
Right, the
Dog
dog
warden.
warden, right? It was a fancier name than dog catcher.
That
So we
kind of
had a dog warden that was separate from the police
He's
and
really an
then we
animal
combined
control
them.
officer, wasn't he? He was considered an animal control
Right,
officer, wasn't he?
so we could decide at some point to pull that apart and then you'd have to rewrite the
I see.
ordinance, so it's better to keep it a little
Yeah,
bit
covering
broader.
anything.
And then you won't have to go back and rewrite it.
Oh, you always have to go back.
Yeah.
Not this way. I covered everything in there.
How many towns, how many did you find that had this?
There were a fair number of them that had them. A lot of towns have them. It was just how broad they are. So some are focused more on like dogs and,
Okay.
and others are broader for livestock.
Okay, I gotta ask this question because I'm reading this going, we're getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at E and F, just down farther, remedial action. I mean, you're talking about if they don't claim it in 10 days, they forfeit the ownership. Okay, what are we gonna do with a horse or a goat or a pig or a cow? I mean, where do you put it? I can tell you the Humane Society has very few people who can rescue animals that are large.
Right.
I
So
mean,
you do have to have something in an ordinance for like what happens in the case that somebody has, what is that, 5 violations or so these are 5 ticketed violations without making any sort of remedial action. And so you do have to have something in there about what happens if somebody's just like, I don't care, that you have an ordinance, right? You have to enforce it. And so what the other ordinances had is this idea that you could technically sell it, right? So just like you have an auction where you seize
Well,
a car
it's like
or.
Addison County Commission sales takes all kinds of livestock.
Right,
Horses,
exactly.
cows, pigs,
So
sheep.
anything theoretically that we could seize, you could then sell. And so this is just saying that you have that right. It's not saying you have to do that.
Okay.
Or that you would ever do
Can
that.
Can we as a town legally?
Yeah.
I mean, then you've got the proceeds from the sale of livestock, if any, shall be turned over to the owner after payment of any outstanding expenses due to the town and payment for any damages done to the livestock. Well, damages between neighbors is a civil actions, and that the town can't get involved in that. I mean, because we're then saying we're taking that on and we're not.
So if the ordinance says that they have to make this remedial action, what we're saying is if in the worst case scenario that you have to seize an animal after 5 or more offenses and no changes are made, that the way that you'll allocate that funding is you will pay out whatever the damage is to the person from that money. And then I guess if there's any left over, it stays with the town.
What happens if there's not enough money?
Town's gonna incur.
Then
costs, too.
you
Well, I know
don't
that.
have any cost. So then it would be a civil claim between neighbors. We'd have nothing to do with it. So it's not like we're actually getting involved in it unless.
We
in
are
this-
getting involved.
Well, in this one really extreme example, right? Like,
I mean, I can just see there's some people out there who aren't gonna have money to pay the fines. They're not gonna pay the fines, and you're gonna get to this point.
right.
And then what do we do?
So
I mean,
you
I
either-
don't wanna get
but so
us into the
you-
weeds.
Right, but so you either don't have an ordinance or you have to have some sort of
Mhm.
final way to adjudicate
so-
it, right?
I mean,
what-
let me,
Go
sorry,
ahead, no,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead.
I'm gonna be devil's advocate here. Okay, so all of these chickens that are in town that are free range,
Mhm.
they're pooping on my ground, on
Mhm.
my property. Okay, so what, we're gonna come take their chickens and say, okay, you gotta pay to clean up the lawn? I mean,
Well, what
we
they-
live with chickens and I know what a mess they can make.
They
but-
wouldn't say that. I think what they would say first is that you need to have a way to enclose them. And that as long as the homeowner is making some sort of provision to enclose them, that's the action that needs to happen. Any other damage would be a civil claim that you would bring against your neighbor. This is only, if that there are multiple offenses, like more than 5.
Yeah.
And Bruce can also, of course, use his own judgment. So, there could technically be a lot more than 5 instances that's when you would have the option to do this. You wouldn't have to do it, but you would have the option.
Yeah,
So,
but if you don't do it, you're basically saying your ordinance isn't worth the paper it's written on.
Exactly. And that's like every ordinance that we have, right? Like if you don't enforce it, then it isn't worth anything. But at some point you have to decide, like, what is the cost of enforcing it? What are the
So-
potential disadvantages?
if I've got a cow bull that's running loose. But I got it back, and I'm up to my fifth, maybe $800. Fine, but he's back in the barn. He's bolted through his fence and this and that. But I've got my bull back. Where are we gonna get that $800? I haven't written a check
Well,
yet
so
from the town.
this
How
would
do they get the $800? How does the town get that?
Well, so this would be Bruce's judgment. So if it's somebody who has a really strong animal that is like breaking through good fences, then Bruce would use his judgment to say, you're doing the best you can. These are unfortunate incidences. But it's more a question of if let's say that you have, one strand of wire up and you have a bull, any reasonable person would say, well, that's not going to hold in that animal if they want to get out. And that would be where Bruce would say, you have a certain amount of time to add a second strand or a third strand or whatever it is, in order to prevent that. But if it keeps happening over and over again without those changes being made.
Does this all fall on Bruce?
Well,
Because-
before we just, right now it
because-
does.
Well,
does, right,
that's,
yeah.
The
that's what I'm
community
asking,
resource
because,
officer probably.
because
It could,
right
yeah.
now, like a dog violation comes to us and we set the stipulations. And
This- This probably would too at that point, but like the first instance, like your dog gets out, Bruce goes, right? Or
he goes, but,
right.
well, what I'm saying, like, if your dog bites somebody, it comes, Bruce goes, but it
Moves
still
right to us.
comes.
Right.
Moves right to the board.
Yeah.
It's a bite.
So if the horse kills somebody, I guess then maybe it comes to us. But I think
Valerie's-
this is more just about animals causing damage, getting out. But here, Valerie.
Valerie, go ahead.
Right. This type of ordinance differs from the typical dog ordinances, which a lot of towns do have, because dog ordinances are specific to vicious animals and provisions where the select board is required to hold public hearings in the event of vicious public safety issues. Right. So that's one major distinction between other types of animal control ordinances, specifically dog ordinances, and something like this.
But we've dealt with a lot of dogs that aren't vicious. They're just running at large or they're barking. And it's
public nuisance.
I understand that, but I just don't. I don't know if it's Bruce's responsibility to the enforcement part of it and the showing up and the ticketing part of it, but is it his responsibility to say, hey, you got to put up another strand of wire, or is that our responsibility? I guess that's what, I don't know is he should have to do that.
Yeah, I think if it's the town's ordinance, I think it's up to us, similar to dog complaints.
The buck stops here.
It comes to the board and we decide, and he may carry out what we.
Right, and the wording is vague like
Yeah.
that. So it's basically that a representative from the town, that could be one of us, that could be Bruce. If you separate out and have some sort of animal warden or whatever, or animal control person, it could be that person too.
Right.
That's why it's written that way, because towns have different people that they would use for that.
I just don't want to shove something like this on to Bruce. I don't have a problem with him going and saying,
Yeah.
if your animal's out, this is the consequence.
Right.
But then I think when it comes to what has to be done,
Yeah.
I think that needs to come back to us. And not that Bruce is incapable of doing it, but I just don't think it's in
Right.
his scope of work to do that.
And this is what he had said. So when we asked him for feedback, he said that he's doing a lot of this already, but he doesn't have any
Tools.
guidelines. Exactly. So this was written around his suggestions.
Val, can you scroll back up?
This
Go back up to the second paragraph.
up here?
The purpose, yeah, where it says, I think that's supposed to be 15. Actually, it says 1S. Is it supposed to be 15? This is 24 PSA 2291 14 and.
I don't know, I copied it straight from the other ones that have already passed. I hope they would check that, right? But we can check
Should be
it.
one,
I think that's
14 and
supposed to be
15.
15.
Yeah, who knows?
I wonder
I
if a paragraph or specific section should be included if we're going to continue down this pathway. A specific provision be written in there allowing for or having a platform for the select board to review complaints and make determinations. In which
Yeah, it
case
should
it
be
becomes a
15.
quasi judicial proceeding.
Okay.
I mean, we do have, I mean, it's broad in terms of the enforcement officer.
Right.
So we could be, I guess you could consider the select board the enforcement officer. But
Well, we
it
wouldn't be
probably
the-
is good to
yeah.
be more specific in this case.
I just, I don't have a problem with it. I just wanna know who's gonna be doing
Yeah.
what. And I don't,
And so
and
maybe
there
put it
again,
in.
I don't feel that it's, you know, Bruce is a law enforcement officer, not.
Animal control officer.
Yeah,
Okay.
well,
So-
we have him doing that too, as far as the dogs go, but,
This is a little more than dogs.
well, the consequences shouldn't be for him to decide. Or at least, I don't feel that burden should fall on him.
And so you can definitely consult with them and decide it yourself. It's just a question of, I mean, what he pointed out was he's already the one who
Yeah.
has to go. But at this point, all he can say is like about talking
your
about
horse back.
public
Or
safety,
get your
right?
cow.
Exactly. It's dangerous because it's on the
I mean,
road.
I use the term an angry bull. If you've ever dealt with an angry bull, Peter had them on the farm. We had one on the farm, and that's why they were down in the corner and they were hooked up pretty well.
Mhm.
They couldn't get out. They didn't get out in the barn very often. And, you know,
Well, they're not
Like,
allowed.
they're not, yeah.
Bulls aren't allowed out after a certain age now anyway.
right. But anyway, you know, if that bull was out, or, I mean, the hill boys were just putting out, Brian has his nice livestock that up on the boss's corner, he's got his wire around, and they feed off that old corn stalks all winter long.
Mhm.
It's got one strand, it's electric.
Mhm. If that keeps them in,
If
then
that
that's
keeps them in,
adequate. Yeah. But
yeah.
it would just be that a reasonable person would say, yes, I can see that you have a fence here and that it's, you know,
To
adequate.
me, but if they were,
But if it
if they
breaks
kept
over and
running and
over
then
again.
but they got them back, and they said, okay, this is your fifth offense, but you got them back in the barn now.
Mhm.
And he hasn't then nobody's written us a check for $800.
Mhm.
Where's the enforcement to go get that? I'd rather that person put it into.
Well, it's
better
not, if
fencing.
you get to the fifth
Right.
offense, it's not $800, it's everything ahead of it, plus the
Right,
$800.
yeah,
Right.
you're right, Picker, but I'd rather, you know, they say,
But this is up to,
put that
so
money towards a new fence.
this is the maximum that is allowed, but it's not the minimum. The minimum could be 0. So it could be you have a first offense, you fix the fence and they get out again. It doesn't mean that automatically you have to charge the 320. You could. So, you know, it's up to us to see if people are making reasonable efforts. That's the point.
And to me, the reasonable effort's not, you know, one screw and a board.
Right.
That, well, or I tied it up with a piece of wire.
Right. And so that's what this is looking at, reasonable effort and then a pattern over time, right? With lots of chances to step in and correct it.
It's more than we have now.
Yeah.
Right.
I
That's what I was-
just want to be clear that we're not dealing with the civil penalties and I should say civil penalties, the civil part of it where damage done to people's house that we're going after people for
Exactly.
damage money. That's
Right,
not our-
right. No, that's
our
not,
job.
yeah, exactly.
No.
That's not part of it
So
at
I
all.
would say the addition of language for the select board in terms of, instead of it being the enforcement officer, I think we need to be a little bit more detail of what that might be. Because essentially it's, you know, within 24 hours, the violation, the enforcement officer shall give written notice. I mean, that could be a police officer, but it also could be the town administrator. with the
Exactly.
board's
It's
approval doing
anyone
that.
designated by the select. board.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't,
You want,
that part of it doesn't bother me. It's the mitigation, what we're gonna do to correct the problem.
Mhm.
okay,
I don't think that that's the responsibility of the administrator or the police chief or a police officer that's on duty. I think that's,
So you're saying what happens is once there is a violation, like maybe the first violation is fine, the second violation, then maybe it has to come to us to
Yeah.
say, okay,
oh, I see.
what's the
Okay.
remediation? Kind of like what we do with the dogs.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay,
Or any, I know if he gives them a second one and they're paying it, but if they dispute it, that he's not in the negotiation business with them.
No, no, of course not.
He's, okay, you gotta go in front of the board.
And this is just what could happen, but of course, if you are not, if you're in violation of the ordinance, you could also have the person come to the select board to decide what the penalty is. Like, this is basically just saying what is possible, but not, it doesn't mandate that any of these things have to happen. It's left up to the judgment of the select board and any agents like Bruce that we would say are responsible for
Yeah, well,
enforcing
I
it.
think the example you use is a tree falling on a fence and an animal getting out.
Exactly.
And Bruce can go there and say, fix it.
Right, and they do, and then
And
that's
that's the end
it.
of it.
Right,
But
exactly.
a habitual offender that keeps.
And doesn't make any repairs, right?
I mean-
That's what we're looking at.
You know, in the scope of things, we don't have a lot of these. But this allows us to have at least some.
Well, do we know? If we
Well-
don't have a lot of these, I mean, if Bruce is already doing it, we may not hear about it because we don't have a policy. You see what I'm saying? I mean, he may be dealing with them, we don't know.
Right. I mean, I think we do hear a fairly decent amount of what, and we can read the police reports. But I don't think if we have one of these, we immediately get a lot more, but I do think it allows the enforcement officer, whether it's the police department or us, to have a little bit more structure to this and have this in place.
And hopefully encourage good behavior, right? Like,
Right.
it's designed to
Well,
say, if you have an accident, that's fine,
Yeah.
like, fix it, right?
And I'm sure lots of accidents have happened that we haven't heard about at all because they were taken care of and no one has a neighbor or whoever hasn't reported it or
Right.
brought it to the attention of the police because they didn't need to. And that will continue to happen. But every once in a while, you'll have issues that do happen and happen again and happen again. And so it's nice to have this in place, at least for us and for the police department.
And for the neighbors.
Yeah,
The neighbors, yeah.
exactly.
I mean, yeah, that old saying is, and it's not a slogan, it's really means a lot, is good fences make good neighbors. But you gotta have a good fence.
A literal good fence.
It's a good fence.
Comments?
Yeah,
I'm
do
gonna-
we need to take
Any
that?
comments from
Thoughts or comments?
You've heard us?
The three of us,
I, well,
Yeah, we know,
I-
we're gonna keep it civil and.
those schools, right? That's the only one,
Yes.
yeah. But, there was an instance, nothing to do with the certain neighbor we're talking about, but on, 116 South, Two Horses, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That, again, that's,
It happens.
yeah, that was a.
Terrible accident.
Our neighbor's got thick fence, her horse is gonna end up on 116 killing somebody.
Yeah.
And that's what's gonna happen, because I don't even know if this will do anything to it.
That's what I'm saying.
I understand that, but if you don't do something.
You gotta do something.
We're making it look like.
Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
Okay.
it doesn't matter. So it does.
And
Yeah.
she claims to know the law about everything, like,
Let's
I
just
was
keep it.
talking to Erica's husband about writing the letter to the Humane Society. It's common knowledge. You give them water, shelter, and food. And your husband goes, no. She found out that shelter is considered a tree. She has no shelters for those
No,
horses.
no.
She doesn't have any trees either.
Oh, she's got trees, and
Oh, she
that's
has
what,
trees
yeah, and
now?
that's what she, I mean, I hate to say it, if there's a loophole in this,
She will find it.
she's gonna find it, so.
She uses water, the running brook
Oh,
and
is
a
that what it-
swamp. Yeah, that's what she considers water.
In the winter.
I wonder,
Exactly.
I'm curious as to what, cause Trent Rollo had to build a fence, to keep his cows 50 feet away from the river.
No, that's because it was, part of it was conservation land.
Right.
He was cutting close to the river. He was mowing it and they told him he couldn't.
Oh, they told me he couldn't even fence it.
Yeah, close, within the 50 feet,
Yeah.
right?
Well, 50 feet is,
Or whatever it was.
50 feet is the
Buffer.
isolation distance that I have to do with the pit.
You know, I believe there's a Vermont law that farmers cannot use a Vermont stream as their drinking source. Because they take the bacteria into the stream from their hip. hooves.
They don't only drink in the stream.
They don't only drink.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be something.
Yeah.
To investigate, actually, if, that's.
Here again, it's not,
Yeah.
That's a humane society thing.
that's a meat society thing, so. Okay, is there any comments from, I see quite a 8 in the chat, but I don't know if they're.
No, that was previous.
Previous,
I have a question.
sure.
Is it, like, when you say a fence, does a chicken coop wire, is that,
Well, that's where I was trying to go with that, was what's the definition?
yeah,
Is you know, for a fence that's electrocuted,
It has
Only
to
one
be
string.
adequate to hold the
Right.
animal.
it has to be
Exactly.
adequate to hold the animal, and I'd like to see
Right,
some
so a
teeth in
chicken, the
it.
chicken coop fencing would be fine,
Well,
For
with the
chickens,
electric
for chickens, but
fence-
not for a bull,
right?
right?
Okay, so if one was to have an electric fence and there's grass or whatever touching it, it grounds it out,
Right,
so it's therefore not effective.
exactly. So that would
So-
be, that would need to be rectified within the 48 hours. So if you notice that the grass is getting long and shorting it out, this would be something where then the ordinance would say that the homeowner would have, or the livestock owner would have 48 hours to rectify the situation before the penalty is assessed.
But that would have to be the horses or cows, whatever, would be getting out during that time.
They gotta get
I mean, you
out.
can't just
Right.
complain
You gotta
because
get
it's,
out
because it's
and
not,
know that
right.
it's not working.
Right.
We'll get out.
But it sounds like they will get out.
They get out.
They will.
Right.
Mhm.
So she put her fence, the line right on her property line. So we have grass that grows, we can't mow all 5.6 acres. So our grass is here and she literally put it right on her line.
Mhm.
So is there, and can there be like, it has to be X amount of feet from our property line? Or are we responsible for going and mowing along the side of her fence?
So that would be a zoning issue. I
I
don't.
don't think there's
do
a
we have-
setback for the.
There's no
fences.
setback
Usually
for a
setback,
fence.
my neighbor, his.
Right on
theirs
the
right
line. Mhm.
Just to
Yeah.
clear this up again, on October 29th, when I had 4 horses extra on my property, I thought my horses were gonna go through. I mean, they just get worked up.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
And anyway, well, somebody said I should take a shotgun, but, you know, I was with a stick chasing them out
Mhm.
and then calling Bruce to say they're down Carlstrom Road. But I checked, I have electric fence and there's like, I think 6 or 7 strands and every other one is charged in
Yeah.
that. And the grass is shorting out.
Mhm.
And what I did, and to me, it made sense. The top 2 I charged. And that way, because the horse is gonna stick his head over
Right.
and when he
Right.
hits the, you know, the
Or
electric.
under, he's gonna hit the top of his head.
Yeah, and you know, he's not gonna go underneath,
Underneath,
but
mhm.
underneath will ground out the fence charger.
Mhm.
So that, you know, that's, you know, hopefully it's, and every so often I check it, you know, obviously you have a meter to check it. and,
So you don't
Oh,
grab
you
all
just
of it.
touch it.
Any more comments? Any more comments from the board? So do we pass it as if we see it? Do we want to add a little language? Do we want
No,
to set
I
30
think
days?
we said we wanted a couple different
Changes.
changes or
Yep.
clarifications.
One more question.
Sure.
I've been, Carlstrom Road is considered, the state police take care of it.
Mhm.
So I just want to make sure that this ordinance is gonna cover Carlstrom Road.
It's a
even though-
town,
It's gonna be
it's a town
or,
ordinance,
as
not
I
a
said
village
earlier,
ordinance.
it's not
It's a
just for
town.
Carlson Road, it'll be Upper Notch Road if Jimmy's bull gets out, and he doesn't have.
The
to.
whole thing.
Get animals.
But having
horses
made a
up my
call.
way.
The horses,
state police
Michelle's
say
horses get
we'll
out.
Connect you
Mine,
to
but-
Bristol,
Mhm.
you know, they
Exactly.
chased them before the police.
Yeah, if it's our ordinance,
Mhm.
and we do have the ability to have Bristol PD go out and they build a town and the town pays for it. So it's not like, they have so much contracted service that they do for the town, and then anything over and above that, we pay an hourly rate for them to be out. So if, I would assume if it's our ordinance, it would be, you know, the state police aren't gonna enforce it, it'll be.
No,
No,
They
they,
You'll be
haven't got
lucky if
time.
they
haven't got
come.
the manpower, they're gonna tell you that right over the phone.
they just don't have the manpower to do it.
So
so
do
the horses seem to like Carlstrom Road now, probably because of my horses, but before they used to run down 116 south.
Well, they're pack animals, they know you have other horses there.
Yeah, and that's-
They'll come visit.
And nothing
They go to our
against,
property to get there.
nothing
So it's
against,
his fault.
Well, we also go they have a priority,
You're
like
looking
our
at-
whole bottom lawn is, and I'm talking divots.
You live in the old fireplace, old fire's old place.
No, we
Next
live up
one
on
up.
a
The
hill,
next one up. Oh,
yeah,
fine.
right next to it.
Okay, you're living on, okay, not the old Frank
East.
East, where Jeff's Road is.
So it sounds like I should make the changes that we talked about and then bring it back, is that right?
I guess would like, some Peter said a couple of key words here a minute ago about fencing for
Adequate.
adequate fencing for the animal you're controlling.
Mhm.
Maybe. in
Have
there.
you specified, like, she can consider,
Balance.
anybody can consider
Anybody.
stuff valid, you know, adequate in their eyes, but is there like a set, can there
I
be
bet
a
there is
set?
the agricultural, state agricultural division, it might be, you know, for chicken, it's gotta be a chicken, like, chicken wire, it doesn't have to be electrocuted, you know. Whatever.
I'll tell you what, chickens learn with electric fence real fast too.
Yeah.
The ordinances all just say that a reasonable effort in the eyes of the person who is responsible for enforcing it. So if you have one strand of fencing up and you have a horse, most people would say that's not gonna work.
That's not.
It's
Depends on the
it's
horse, but-
sufficient, it's sufficient if it's electrified and if it's kept
Properly.
up.
Kept up.
But so most of the ordinances though don't define for every single animal what
Right.
the fencing looks like. But it's the idea that a reasonable person would find it adequate for that
And if they
animal.
keep getting out of that fence, then
Then
that
it's
fence is
clearly
not
not
adequate.
sufficient. Yeah.
Right,
Right.
It's not efficient.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I can
think-
make those changes.
And I think that's where the select board's role can also come in to help.
Mhm. Right,
Discuss that on a case-by-case basis and determine what's reasonable based upon.
Right.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah. Jim.
suggestively, it would run us by the town attorney. Michelle will tell you, one word, may, will, shall, may, makes a difference.
Mhm.
I would run it through the town attorney before you go any further on it.
What's the board feel about that? I
And-
don't disagree with that statement.
You could definitely do that if you want. The one, I think that Valerie linked to the 3 different examples that these were ones that were passed, so we can use
Well,
those.
just because they were passed doesn't mean that those towns are in it by the attorney either.
Right.
Not that I wanna spend the money, but.
Well, if
it's
we're gonna
fine.
have some teeth in it, we better have.
If we,
something that's-
if we wanna be, if we don't wanna get, somebody can always find a loophole, but if we don't wanna get hit
There's a
with
will, there's a
loopholes right
way.
off the bat.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would make the changes, this sufficient fencing to, adequate fencing to
Contain
contain the animal that
the animal
you're
that you're trying to contain.
contain. And that at some point, do we wanna do the second offense they come before the board?
I'm sure we'll do 2, but.
Well, maybe you determine if it's a first offense and then it's an egregious offense.
Yeah.
You know, like they've done huge property damage or they've gotten an accident or caused an accident or whatever, that may come right to the board. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you figure that out.
I think I could just write in there that the select board is responsible for adjudication so that the representative is able to bring these
Yeah,
at their discretion.
Depending on, yeah.
But, you know,
That way we don't
Peter's
have
done
to
a lot of
define
them,
each instance.
dog things where we've said, this dog can't stay in town
Mhm.
and you can't move it to another town. We
We've
won't
only
put
done
that.
that once.
Well, we've done it, I think we've done it
Once.
maybe
Couple
a
times.
couple times at least. You know, what do we do with, we say, okay, this is your 23rd offense.
Mhm.
And
Then
you
you auction it off.
go, do we have the authority?
According to the ordinance, if we pass it, we do.
Well, like I said, I'd like to see a lawyer run that by and say,
We
you
can
can't,
have Kevin look at it. real
Kevin,
quick.
real quick, and you'll say, you know, yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I would
think it's
recommend
so
also
easy.
authorizing the town administrator to make that recommendation to have it be heard before the select board, because sometimes the complaints might go through the town administrator and not through the police department at all.
Look how she's doing that now. Look how she's doing that now with only a few weeks left. Throwing that-
Yay, Ian!
Keep that livestock contained.
Yeah, and again, the wording says that any representative that is designated by the select board to do it. So we could definitely say
Yeah.
there's a whole range of people who
The
could.
chair of the select board.
Right,
Now,
exactly.
here's another
Or money
twist, and I don't want to put more stuff onto the Public Works Department, but the fact that the Public Works Department and their representatives are out and about around town quite a bit, maybe they would want, just allow them to be empowered to also.
Eric's nodding.
Eric's nodding no.
Eric's nodding.
I think he
Yeah,
said, "You
to
can
be
come get the
empowered,
keys
that
to
not
the truck, drive
necessarily
around town,
burden them
down
with the responsibility, but
We can do whatever we want.
or assign them with the responsibility, but empower them to also weigh in on these situations, because they probably
Yeah.
observe it pretty regularly.
Oh, we got an empty salt shed all summer long. We can house them in there.
Right,
Give you better shelter.
yeah.
Fence them in on a solar field.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna
We'll
not
have to-
vote
we'll
on
have
this
to mow
tonight.
it.
We're gonna bring it back.
I'll revise it and send it to Valerie.
Okay.
Colby just texted in the chat that he would love that.
Thank you, Colby.
You have a volunteer, right?
Yeah.
Just send it to me and I'll have Kevin look at it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys for attending. Number
Is there
four.
anything else?
Yeah.
One more question. Is there a noise ordinance in Bristol? In
No,
Why not?
We,
I mean, okay, so.
There is one in the village. There was one in the village when we were a village in town. And I talked to Valerie about that today, because we are working on, been toying in her list of stuff on her stuff to do was a noise ordinance.
Mhm.
And I said, before we rewrite the wheel again, maybe we could take that one and dust it off. Because remember when we were growing up and some of the guys on the back of the park would get their electric guitars out and plug them in at 2, 3 in the morning, and police department would be going crazy, going, nothing we can do is not noise ordinance. I can remember in the 70s, that's what they used to do here. Peter, I think, was on one of those guitars.
No.
No. No, I never did either, but we could hear it. And, so the board, it's on their list of things to do. Noise ordinance, and it maybe just,
consider it.
consider it, just to dust off the old 93 one from the.
why do we have to
97.
get Jeff to put a muffler on his lawnmower?
No, like a dog barking or howling for 7 hours straight.
That's a
That,
dog.
that is addressed in the dog ordinance.
That's in the dog ordinance.
Yeah.
That's in our dog. We already been dealing with that one.
Is that one right past us on,
across the
street?
No, it's who we're talking about.
Oh, is that right? Oh, okay.
And
There's
I've
one
asked
across
her
the street.
blatantly, is there anybody home to let your dog in? And she said, no, I'm out of state. But she has her collar. I told her he was, or here, I don't know, it was barking, it was howling. He can go inside if he wants, and it didn't stop.
Maybe I'll go into the horse.
And she said there was no ordinance.
Tree.
Yes, it is.
There.
There is
There's
a dog.
ordinance.
Yeah.
Barking, nuisance dog.
Mhm.
Kat, what's up?
It's on the website, right?
It is.
Valerie? It's on the website.
Okay,
And
so
then you
what
can-
do you do?
That,
You
call the
file a
police
complaint.
department, file a complaint,
And it comes to us.
comes to us eventually.
And then what
Well,
happens?
Bruce will. well,
We have a hearing.
We have a hearing,
Yeah.
and, bring them in, may show up, may not.
And then we impose,
Restrictions, we put as much as dog bark collars on the dogs. They've got to make arrangements to put them inside.
Mhm. Doggy daycare, whatever,
Daycare,
yeah,
we have
whatever.
A number of things.
Okay.
Does she leaves out of state, leaves the dog, she have somebody who watches them?
well, that's why the horses are going over to
Just
Because
as-
nobody
yeah, so
feeds
that, so he can get fed.
Yeah, well, I hate it's better than what she's offering.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, I don't know about the food situation, but in her eyes, it can go in if it wants to. Otherwise, it's everybody else's problem.
That,
So
and
that's
that
how you-
right there could be a humane society. You could address that. through a
Right.
humane society too.
If she's not having somebody there to take care of her
Make
while she's
arrangements for the
gone.
dogs. You could. Okay. All right, any more questions for us? Thank you guys for
For
coming.
the dog ordinance, if you go to the town website, there's documents and forms.
Okay.
And under policies and ordinances, it's the second one down. And that details the whole process in terms of if you have a complaint, what the process is
Okay.
to bring it to us.
So when the horses get out next time, what, I just come to you guys, say, hey.
Right now, we don't have a running at large.
For that,
and-
yeah, for that particular one, we don't have a policy. That's what this one is. So if this policy.
Right,
if this
separately.
Correct. If this policy passes, then there'll be.
What is this like any other ordinance we pass where there's a
Sorry.
waiting period?
Probably 60 days.
It's the 60-day, you have to publish it in 5 places publicly and put a notice in the newspaper and, yeah, and allow, a referendum of folks to repeal it within 60 days, if they so choose.
So if we get this cleaned up and we pass it at our next meeting, it'll still be 2 months before it takes effect.
Okay. they'll be-
I just,
Give you-
trying to be
Just so you
honest.
know. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm glad
that's
we're
the
using your
process.
discussing it because.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause we,
So anytime anything happens in the next 60 days, or whatever, we still should contact the chief.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can still contact the
Because
chief,
the safety
that's your
hazard
right,
out
yeah,
there,
you're always
yeah.
call the chief,
Yeah.
and you have document.
Right.
And I'll take a picture if I catch them.
Mhm.
But you always don't catch them when they're on the loose. You know, she's done it early in the morning sometimes,
Yeah,
Yeah,
usually
they
get
get
out in the morning.
but if she ain't around, gotta be loose for a while.
Right.
Well, she has a neighbor that down the road, I forgot who it is.
Okay.
And she ends up putting her horses in the corral there, and then when this neighbor comes home, she brings them back. So,
Okay.
Well, thank you for
That'd
your
be cool.
feedback. We appreciate
That'd
it.
be called the Humane Society every day.
Yeah.
Okay. Briggs Hill Road repair, consider update on FEMA funding, cost estimates, next steps.
Yes, so this is an
Get out while you can.
agenda item. And hopefully folks had a chance to look at the notes in my report that references some of the information we received from the engineer who has worked quite a bit on the Briggs Hill Road repair. The big news is that FEMA determined last month that the storm of July 2023 is now eligible for 90% FEMA reimbursement. And considering the dollars we're talking about for Briggs Hill, that could be a game changer. And looking at the numbers, which I laid out in the report, based upon current figures, which always change, they don't certainly get smaller over time. But right now, and FEMA looks at 2 different levels, or 2.5 different levels of repair. There's what it costs to put it back the way it was, if you could. What's that cost?
They aren't gonna let us do that though, I thought.
Well, you can't because the current codes and standards wouldn't even allow it. That's why there's a difference. That's why I said 2.5,
Well,
because
that's what I was gonna ask you. The codes and standards means what the state requires, their codes and standards.
now, right. Yeah, we could put it back to something inadequate. We can just slap some gravel up there and slap some pavement over there and put some dirt here and there. And that would be kind of the in kind, but it wouldn't meet any codes and standards. So the figure, what the engineer came up with for that kind of in kind repair was over $2.3 million just for that. And then the mitigation to improve the situation, which includes the improved culverts and catch basins and some other element, that amounted to only a little over $100,000. And the mitigation, as we currently understand it, would be reimbursed at 100% to a certain limit, but we would be under that if we follow this formula, and 90% of the 2.3 million currently.
I have a real problem with the fact that we went up and we did the work in the river and we brought the rock right straight up. But we can't, and it's the same, basically the same height.
Issue. Mhm.
Same height. And we go there and it's gotta be 1.5 on 1. I mean, I just.
You don't have a
and
river counting,
there's
but you
no
don't have a
water,
river
there's
counting.
no ice, there's no,
Yeah, it's just.
And it's the same engineer.
It's just runoff.
yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say reimbursement, would that mean the repairs we've done so, as in i.e. the traffic lights, its bill was $7,000 or $8,000? I don't remember.
No, the traffic lights are not covered.
Yeah, that's not included because they consider that an operating expense and they don't reimburse for operating expenses. I know.
It's
And that cost is a small amount compared.
Oh, yeah, it is a
Compared to the
small amount.
engineering that we've already put into it,
Right.
which is 145,000, which we
So
don't
is
have
that-
any, we don't have any payment for that. That's on our dime at the moment. And if we decide not to go through with this, then we need to pay that.
Right.
Well,
But
we
if
already
go through
have.
with it, Then we
Have
get
been
that
paying
money.
that,
We get that money reimbursed if we go through with it. We get the.
Right, but the question is
So, wow, you did a good job silencing that. Joel.
So, so these current expenses only relate to the July of 2023 storm, but the July of 20, or the June 2024, July, whatever,
July.
2024 storm made that section worse and added another one, and we don't. So some of this cost includes part of that, doesn't it?
To some degree, yes. I don't know what the actual calculations turn out to be, because clearly the July 24 storm brought more damage into the road, which
Right.
technically was included in the 2023 repair, because that whole section would be replaced. But where it would be more and different is going down the hill and kind of lengthening that area of damage, and that's what we don't know. And if we do go forward with that, then that would be covered at 75% currently.
So if we go this route and you do the in-kind repair with codes and standards plus mitigation, we're talking 2.5. They cover at 90%. It's a 2.084, and then the 231,601 is the 20%.
Yeah.
Or whatever, our percentage. And we split that 50-50 with the state. Can we also split that with the town of Lincoln? They should have a kick in this if they want us to keep that road open.
If I was a town Lincoln select board, I'd tell you to pack it. Well, no,
Well, then I say we're closing the road.
Well,
Deal.
I don't think we should close the road either.
Why?
Yeah.
At 2.4 million, if it's all on us.
I still
Not
don't
all
see,
of us.
I still don't see,
Only 10%,
I don't
5%
see,
of it is on us.
I don't see 2.4 million there. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 600 and something thousand for the river work. And that was drilled and pinned.
Right.
This can be stacked.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're also talking about lowering the road.
Right.
Okay.
Regrading,
Well, road-
lowering it, and
the
2
road
retaining
work,
walls.
Mowing the road, taking some of the slope out on the top, and the same with on the second slope down the bottom, lowering that down.
Right.
So it's not just the bank, it's actual road, the pitch, the new
culverts.
culverts, the ditching.
But isn't some of those culverts related to the 2024 storm?
No,
too?
no.
Not the
No.
24 storm, no.
Yeah, and it also, the repair plan calls for going into the upper slope bank in order to
Yeah.
make that new grade for the road. They have to cut into the hillside, as well as regrade the slope towards Lincoln Road. So, yeah.
So,
Well, this is good if FEMA's willing to cover more of it.
I
So we could
don't
repair
believe
for a lot
the
less.
select board needs to make a decision tonight, but I want you to be aware of this change in the situation. And I guess one question to decide tonight, if we're prepared to, is whether to authorize or direct the engineering company to do that additional work to determine the 2024 damage, the length of that, the extent, and to what degree the repair plans would need to be adjusted. Presumably, it shouldn't take as much time and effort as all the original plans, because they still have all of those measurements right there. They just need to make some additional updates.
So FEMA has determined the 2024 storm qualifies, but only at 75%.
Currently.
So how do they determine whether it's 75 or 90? I mean.
Well,
Yeah,
we know what the parameters were or are for the 23rd or the 2023 storm, and then they'll just calculate the difference with the 24, because it's length of the road, maybe a little bit more down the slope, maybe a little bit more slope. I don't know.
So would the road realignment or reshaping fall in the 23 storm, or would that fall in the 20? Would all fall in the 90%?
Yeah, because that was
according
under
to
that
according to
engineering.
the engineering fee that you guys had done now, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Eric, you had a question?
Yeah, the only thing I have, and I talked to Valerie a little bit about it, I think it was last week, is, seems that you got the extra amount now that's washed, and you're gonna have the extra cost. Would it be worth revisiting moving the road?
Well, didn't you say, Valerie, here, one of those, was really off the table?
That was going.
Well, if
through
somebody else is
Mercer's.
willing or able to take it on,
Oh.
I will probably not be available to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only question. I mean, if we're putting in, you know, that, and that could, say, potentially go again at some point, or in between the two sections that are fixed, go. FEMA would relocate the road. They would pay for it. Well, not everything, but you'd have your percentages. But they would be more apt to go that route if you're seriously, limiting the potential for the wash. But then you, of course, you gotta do your right of ways, you gotta do your lane
That's
stuff.
a huge, that's a
And
huge.
yeah, I just
undertaking.
didn't know if that was something that would
That's
be
probably a
worth.
$10 million project.
Okay, then never mind. It was just something I thought of because you had it with Du Bois and King done.
Yeah, and I don't think they would
So.
cover that.
Yeah,
I don't think they would cover,
FEMA
they wouldn't
fund-
cover $10 million.
No.
No,
It
they
would have
cover
to be
2.5.
They might cover the road, putting the road, but getting all the right of way and the legal work and all that, they're not covering that.
Would they
I
cover
can't imagine they would
up
cover
to the
that.
amount would be fixed Briggs Hill?
Yeah. From what I understand, when I took the FEMA guys around on the 23 storm, that they didn't say that they would cover it. They said they would consider it.
Right.
So no matter the whole
You-
project, they would consider it, not saying they would do it,
You
but
know what that means.
So you're talking
Nope.
same people.
You
told
do
us
the
about
work and then
water
we're
line
gonna
on West
decline
Street?
you.
nope, nope.
So,
You're gonna be 90% or 75%.
But anyways, it was just a thought, and we talking to Valerie about it last week, so.
And Valerie, if I do the math here, so this 231,000 would be split by the town in Vermont, in the state of Vermont, or 115,800 apiece. for
As far
Briggs
as I
Hill?
know, yeah, because you recall that we have this ERAF, these emergency response something fund, and typically when it's a 75% FEMA reimbursement, the town and the state split the rest of it 12.5% each.
Well, that's the 90%.
Right, so I presume that proportion is still in effect, so it's 10%. So we're responsible for 5%.
So my question is the damage that's there right now, if we could freeze that damage right now until it gets fixed, is it $2.3 million to fix?
Correct. Plus
So
the
they're gonna cover 90% of
103
that, but some of it's
mitigation.
gonna come from 23 money and some gonna be 24 money, or I don't understand.
Those
No.
figures are just for the 23.
We're gonna say, yeah, 24 isn't figured in there yet, Joel.
Oh,
It's gonna be
Right.
more.
okay.
Right.
Probably
So
gonna
the-
be more like 3
the-
million.
The
3.5 or 4.
the 103 is the one that you're saying should be covered 100%.
That's what we believe.
Right, so that's why that's not included in 2.3.
Okay.
So this 103 will be covered
In
at
here.
100%. It's not included in this.
Okay.
But of course, the town has to pay it all up front and then get reimbursed. So there's that.
Kind of like the water line on Pine Street.
Most everything.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
So,
still, I
Like,
still think the
go
town
back to
of Lincoln.
Peter's question about the river, the water rushing by and the spring ice and everything at high water, it's almost standing straight up, but it is pinned. I'll give the engineer.
Well,
but
it's not
could
all
we
pinned.
ask
They
at least-
use that geostabilization in the upper one. They only pinned the bottom 3 courses.
Oh, could we ask the engineer that question? They get him on site and go, why couldn't we do here on Briggs Hill what we did at the river? For
Without pinning.
600,000
Yeah.
versus 2.3. Can we at least have a meeting of the minds up there?
Well, the 2.3 isn't all just about the pinning. That's also about changing the road and the culverts and stuff, so.
But it's not that,
Yeah.
it's not that big a deal. There's a 10-foot wall in there. And that's where the expense is. That ready rock wall,
Mhm.
that
Like
right,
precast.
we have a breakdown of that whole project.
Yeah, I know.
I guess my questions would be, Val or Frida, how long are we eligible for FEMA funding for this? If we choose to go a route that maybe brings in or asks for more engineering quotes for this. We got one engineering quote for this project, it's 2.4. we're all very shocked at that number. Is it worth putting it out there, an RFP, to have this re-engineered by other groups?
They
So we
would
have
not pay
comparison.
for it to have it done twice or any more than once,
That would be on us.
right?
Now, if you
Because
do
I
that,
mean,
but it would be
it's
on us.
it's already on us until we choose to do this, but
But we don't get
how
reimbursed for the
long,
second.
how long does FEMA wait on a project like this? Can we decide in 4 years that we're gonna do this and we'll get 90%?
well, we have submitted a request for an extension to November of 2025 to continue evaluating our options on just the 23 storm. So we do still have more time. We don't have to make a decision tonight. We can decide what more information we need, and actually Frida and I are meeting with FEMA again tomorrow at 1 o'clock on all kinds of things, including this and the July 24 storm.
So
So,
Val, can you send me that link? I'd like to join that meeting, please.
oh, that'd be great. Yeah, please. Yes, I'll send that to you.
I might as well get my FEMA wet.
Your FEMA feet.
Frida says in the chat, she says, we got the quote that was high and only offered one solution. So that is, I mean, yeah, that was part of it too, that there wasn't any.
We had no other alternatives to
Yeah.
consider.
Which is and I don't know if we can go back.
Yeah, I think we could. I think we could ask the
Speaker's
engineer to
alternative.
provide some alternatives, and we had provided them with the sketch that Peaker provided about the stone embankment going up from the bottom upward, and I don't know what consideration
but-
they gave to that, but they had it.
The comment that they made was that it wasn't 1.5 on 1 and it wouldn't hold, but what I didn't do was put the size of the rock in there. If you use 4 foot rock, a 4 foot rock comes up 4 foot without going back 1.5. Or going back four times 1.5.
Yeah.
So perhaps we ask them to do the additional evaluation from the July 24 storm, get those measurements, get that quantity, and then also ask them to reconsider alternatives for the entire repair, perhaps.
Something similar to what they did on the riverbank, because they've said the ground is stable there, so it doesn't need to be pinned. And if you started out with the bigger material, you'd be coming more vertical. And then, basically what Eric and I had talked about was coming up 10 or 12 feet with big rock coming back fairly slowly, and then laying the smaller rock. And they did it just the opposite way. They laid the smaller rock down at the bottom and built a wall at the top. And
Would that still require, though, wouldn't that still require the retaining walls to hold up a reconfigured roadway?
No, because the road's gonna come down if anything.
Right.
Road's dropping 3-4 feet, 3 feet.
I mean, I don't know if get them on site and Eric and I could walk with them and just brainstorm.
I think that's worth it.
I think we need options. I think
I do.
if a single option was proposed and it's 2.5 million, I think we need other options.
Well, then we
You
haven't
feel
done
like
our
you're-
job.
We feel like we're in the corner. you
Yes,
know, And
yes.
you're
So
like, it's either this or nothing.
Val or Frida, is there an answer to how long can we work with FEMA on this? Is there a
2025.
So far, November 2025.
okay.
For the 23.
Where we would have to make a decision on what. we're
Okay,
doing.
so that
Yeah.
gives us time, because we still need to be involved with the town of Lincoln residents and administration there in a discussion about this project. And
Well, if we
potentially
decide to put the
collaborate.
road back, they're not gonna be upset about it.
No, I
They're
know.
only gonna
No,
be
but they
upset
should
if
be
we decide.
collaborating with us
Right.
and maybe paying for a portion of it.
I mean, they're asking, well, some are asking to have it closed, some are asking to have it open. I think probably most would want it in good weather, want it open. So I think
Didn't hear
I
anybody
think-
who said they wanted it closed.
I feel, no, there was some in terms of the winter time.
Oh, okay.
They were
Oh,
concerned
They were
about
okay
that.
with it being
Yes,
closed.
yes, but
And
during better months, everyone would have preferred to see it
Okay,
open.
right.
So I think Lincoln does,
And it is the only other way up there if something happens to Lincoln.
yes.
Right.
Well.
Yeah, and part of that
Through the
discussion.
notch,
Three more,
it's
but
just a
it's a
long way.
long
Well,
The
right.
notch, Quaker Street, it's
And-
just a long way
Yeah,
around.
Branch Road.
And part of that discussion was the fact that Lincoln Road may receive more damage and be unpassable, and then there'd be no road up there.
Correct.
So this could be Lincoln's investment in an
Right,
alternative.
I mean, that's part of it too. I think that,
But they're not gonna,
I know,
they're not gonna shell out any money. Would we give them money?
So I said, I tell you.
I know. No, I know, that's why the 2.5, because if we had tackled that project, we need that available to us before they give it back, and it'll be a long time before we see that. So, okay, so it seems like we have some ideas in terms of, we can add this in terms of engineering costs. If it's not a completely re-engineered by a different firm or putting it out again, we work with our current.
For another
engineers.
option.
Yeah, present other options, meet with Eric and Peaker and others interested to sort of discuss the project on site and hopefully get some ideas from them about what could be accomplished. Especially given that we have the Lincoln Road project to point to and say, look what was just done here. And it's
That you
very
guys
similar.
designed and it's straight up.
Yeah.
with water.
It's actually,
Yeah, it's actually-
the upper site's actually straighter than what it was supposed to be.
And the water's rushing by it all the
Right.
time.
Yeah,
We need to make sure that whatever is proposed meets current codes and standards.
Well, it met it on the Lincoln Road. I mean,
right. Val, do you know if the current codes and standards, is that the reason why the road is being lowered to meet those codes and standards? Or is that something else that Du Bois and King felt needed to be done?
I can't answer that. I don't know the answer to that question.
I think when
Okay.
they were talking about it, they just said it would be better to lower it for water drainage, if I remember right, because they were gonna take some of the
And it would
hill
be-
off on the upper side and have it come down so it would go down the culvert or
I mean,
across the road.
it's a pretty steep road.
It is.
And then it would make the road to Lincoln, the slope to Lincoln Road less because it's dropping, you know, instead of like
And
this.
the retaining walls wouldn't have to be quite so high also,
Right.
lower retaining.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the Peaker's point, start with a big rock, get up.
yeah, you come up.
Okay.
8, 10, 12 feet and then lay the smaller rock back against it. It's not going anywhere.
And when you say
So-
small rock, it might be in the 2 foot.
Do we need
Yeah.
to vote to authorize the engineers then?
I think it was consensus.
Okay.
It would be
Okay.
handy to do that.
To have a motion, you mean, here, to continue discussion?
To ask Du Bois and
authorize.
King to come up with a alternative to the current design.
That would be. in the
Also,
next-
and also to do the damage assessment
24
for the
damage.
24 storm, the differences.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Well, that was good.
Second.
Second, I'm about ready to go, hearing none.
Just testing people.
Okay, we have a second. Any more discussion? Eric, you have anything to add? You were up there a lot.
Question, Val, the 90%, that's based on the engineering study that
It'll be based
We've already
on what
looked.
we spend.
we've already looked, right? Well, that we've already looked at. This new study, they discover more things that have happened to the road. They add a bunch more things in. Does that then get pushed to the 75% or is that, okay?
Yeah.
So we have to be
There
careful
would
of
be,
that.
there'd be very clear division. And I
Okay.
think it's calculable. It's annoying, but it's calculable.
Two separate FEMA numbers.
Right.
Okay,
Okay,
So whatever engineering work, additional work they do will be for 2024, other than the reworking of different
23 storm
options.
will-
right, so the different options, so they present an option that's
$1 million.
a million, right? So that would be 90%. But how do you then calculate that, the new damage that's done with the
Probably
redone
do
option
some
that's now a million?
extrapolation, or projections, mathematical ratios.
It's all that guessing.
Yeah, do all the
Okay.
quantifying and then.
Educated
The
guess.
less they put
Big-
on the 2024 and the more they put on the
That's what
23,
I'm
the
saying.
better off we
But
are.
that's what they did. I mean,
Yeah.
The FEMA were quite surprised by how much it was, and then it was asked to be redone, and they redid it. But then they just sort of moved stuff.
Bunch of
from-
cold patch
from
would
different
fit the
different
24.
line items around, but essentially it was the same cost.
Well,
Okay.
actually FEMA asked them to do that because their original report had the retaining walls as mitigation. And,
Right.
and FEMA advised them, FEMA folks determined that the retaining walls were not mitigation, which is so that's 90% instead of 100%, but
Yeah.
It is mitigation if we have another storm and it all just falls down the hill and doesn't go by that
Use
wall.
some very strong glue.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any
All right.
more questions on this? So the motion is to have
To
Yeah.
authorize the
authorize the
engineers
engineering to figure out the 24 cost
Mhm.
damage
and
and to
alternatives.
Give us another
alternatives
option.
and to Peaker and Eric
Meet with
and
Peter and Eric.
and the engineers to try to lay out some different options, next steps. Okay. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Number 6, consider approval of proposed short surveying incorporated to complete the National Flood Insurance Program letter of map amended for the Rocky Dale site.
This is regarding the Mashak property.
Right.
Did you talk to
Thought we'd
Tim,
done
Val?
that.
I did not speak with him directly. I believe AZ did.
I know that Tim tried to talk to the guy, I can't remember his name now, but to state. Kyle, to say, you don't really need to do this, blah, 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 and he just wouldn't, so he's gotta go back up and do more work in order to apply for this map amendment.
So is
So
that a
that's what this
motion to have this done, Michelle?
I was just giving you an explanation, but I'll make the motion, I just think it's stupid.
Okay.
Do
Michelle?
we have
Duly
to do
noted.
it?
A lot of the stuff we have
I
to do
just-
is stupid.
But we do have to do this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
If we don't, we're in violation.
Oh, okay.
Technically, he says we're in violation,
Yeah.
and
We-
Tim doesn't feel that
We
way.
feel we're not, but the state.
But they have the final say.
Yeah.
Is there a
Because
second to
he
this?
has the power.
Yeah.
And he's using it.
And I
Second.
propose that the
Second.
funds come out
All
of
those
the
in- okay, any more
planning,
questions on
planning
this?
department
Sorry.
planning line item.
Okay.
Did you hear that?
No.
Money's coming from the planning and
Planning
zoning department's
Yeah.
planning project.
Okay. Okay, any more discussion on this besides Michelle's comments?
We can send those minutes up to Kyle.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay.
Hopefully, there's a little discretion when those minutes are.
Yeah.
Review and possibly adopt the new emergency management director job
Exactly.
description.
So moved.
Second,
Nice job.
thank you.
It is a nice job, but I wondered if we should hold off on, the job description I'm fine with is, I know Valerie expressed an interest to move it to a different position from the town administrator's job. Maybe the new town administrator has that background, and I'd like to just, my opinion is.
So we just hire him based on that job description. They could do both.
No, that's what I'm saying, not, we're just doing the job description now, not hiring.
No, we're not hiring
Right,
anybody.
Don't we're not hiring anybody right now.
Okay, there's a motion and a second?
Mhm.
It's, well,
Okay, comment.
so you know, it will fall to you if we don't hire someone. So.
Till March 3rd, March 5th, and it's Michelle.
No,
Right.
I'm not taking share. I'm telling you now.
So just be aware of that. I mean, I understand your position on that. I still think it should be a separate position. I think
I do too.
it's
It's too
beneficial
much.
to have it be a
And
separate
the person you're thinking about is, got my vote for sure, but I just was,
No.
just gonna leave us that option until we get a new town administrator. Whether it should,
I still think it should be separate. Even if they have the skills to do that, I think they're already gonna be doing
Too much.
way too
Too
much.
much?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
think
just-
so.
And this is a pretty, it's not that it's simple, it's involved,
no,
but it's not. It's something that we have an interested candidate, which is great, and it's rare for this particular thing, and they just happen to have the right skills, and I don't wanna lose that.
no, I agree with you. I know that candidate and I think it's, yeah, he does
Yeah.
have the right skills. Valerie, how many times, if we didn't have the two July storm, both 23 and 24, how many times do you deal with emergency management, these types of things?
Well, it's not so much during work, because you know, and most people know, I don't live in Bristol. And each time that there has been a disaster, I've been on the other side of the mountain. So I can't, I'm just by that nature alone, I'm not very helpful in that regard. But it's all the preparation, all the pre-arranging the trainings and the exercises and the outreaches and the coordination and the communications and the plan updates and all these other things are really very time consuming. And then, of course, there's the aftermath after the damages
Right.
and all that documentation and working with FEMA. I think the town administrator will be working with FEMA and all the other agency representatives anyway. But as the emergency management director, there's a lot of meetings and committees and other things that just take up a lot of time.
Just being wary of it's just another position. It's going to be starting on the payroll. That's going to be.
Is it a full-time position?
No, it's not
No,
full-time.
it's part-time and it's a stipend of,
It's a stipend.
I recommended 750. And
Okay.
that was looking at what we currently do for stipends for health officer and
Right.
fire department officer.
No, I'll bet you the time that Val's involved in it, we end up paying way more than that.
Yeah. At that,
That's not a, it
Yeah,
just.
no, I know.
I thought you were going to
That's
put
a
another
fact.
zero. on
Consider
that
it
for sure.
volunteered,
Ian,
I guess.
honestly, I thought you were going to put another zero on that 750. Honestly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, okay, I'm
Sounds
fine with it.
good.
So is there,
Yep.
you've made a motion, is second, any more questions?
I would, if we're interested in filling this, I would I'd recommend inviting a candidate for an interview, if we're interested in interviewing that person.
Sounds
Oh,
good.
we don't have a job description yet.
Let's get one of those first.
Let's get one of
Yeah.
But yes and yes.
And you haven't told him the amount yet, him or her the amount yet.
I don't think so.
So they may
We
be
can
not
adjust
quite
that.
so
Yeah,
interested in
yeah.
for how much?
Yeah.
Right, okay, all those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, stay, okay. 8, follow up on final details of the ARPA allocation resolution approved on November 4,
That's thingy.
2024.
There's
With the
really no
sign.
action needed on this one. It's just following up from the November 4th agenda item where you did approve the resolution. And these are just buttoning up the final details and the resolution's there on your table to sign.
So if you voted no, as I did, do I still sign it?
If you're signing, it means you vote, it means you're a yes.
What were their comments from the auditors?
They supported the recommendation that Chris put forward about applying it to the payroll for this year. And also they worked on, I think they agreed with the number.
Okay, super, thank you.
Okay. Okay, that's going around, so we don't have to motion to sign that, because we're signing it. Okay, review of the meeting minutes. You have any?
October 21.
October
I make a
20,
motion to approve October 21 with, I don't think I had any changes that I sent Val.
okay,
Second.
there's a motion to second, or 21, Speaker, or Jessica, or Ian, did you have any corrections on those?
I did not.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? We have accounts payable, it was just a few dollars, accounts payable was, and liquor license.
No.
No liquor license or tobacco, okay, the accounts payable went around and they got signed.
$2,975,177.05. Bleeding us dry, Sharon.
220,
You said you're
200.
bleeding us
50,000 is the town,
Yeah.
2.9 is the
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. Glad.
When I saw that, I went, oh, I gotta be a school in there. Okay. Select board roundtable, Jessica, we haven't heard from you lately,
I don't have anything to add.
okay? Ian,
Nope, I'm good.
Michelle?
I just want to say thanks to Bruce and the Bristol PD. They had a rough weekend, so I'm glad they're there and.
I
thanks for
talked
all
with
they're
him
doing.
today. Couldn't make it tonight because I was dealing with that, so, yeah, Peter?
Yeah.
I just, I told you guys before, I can't make the December 30th meeting at Monday night. Do you mind moving it to, it is 2 days before Christmas, the 23rd, the Monday, or you can meet without me?
It's my mother's birthday.
The 23rd?
I won't be here.
Okay, so
I will not miss that.
it's, no, I don't blame you, but it's an extra meeting, the 30th. So I don't-
It's not really an extra meeting. It's taking place of the second.
Right,
Are you okay running the
I
meeting,
think-
Michelle?
you're okay,
Go
Michelle?
ahead, fine, it's okay.
Okay,
She can handle it.
she can handle it, she's no
It'll
problem.
be practice for when she's chair.
Okay.
That's right.
In March.
No, that's all I have, so. Okay, town administrators report, Valerie.
Yes, I do not have anything to add to my written report, but I think this would be a good place to bring up to mention the update on where we are with the town administrator recruitment. We have received 7 responses so far, 4 from out of state and 3 from in-state. And there's a candidate that is pretty local that I would consider to be, as right now, the top candidate. So one question is process. We haven't really had a chance to talk about that in terms of the interview process. And I know that when I was hired 7 years ago, I met with just the select board. There was no other level prior to that. And what we've been doing in recent years is with many of the candidates that have been considered among different departments, there's been an internal review first, where we kind of screen the candidates. We've often had more than one candidate to screen at that time and then present a final candidate to the select board. So one option is to have us do that initial screening in-house and kind of get some initial questions and kind of, I don't know, certain things out of the way or on the table first before meeting with the select board, or go straight to the select board. But I would recommend that that Sharon and Chris be involved in the process, because they would be working very closely with this person.
So are you thinking like Sharon and Chris and you and somebody else meet with them?
Yeah.
First?
Yeah, I mean, that's an option. That's how we have done it in the past with several other recruits.
I think that's a great idea, because if.
They're the ones that have to work with them.
If Sharon and Chris, if we meet with them and we got rave reviews and Sharon and Chris don't get any input, and they have questions that, all of a sudden they're like, this isn't gonna work because this person can't do this and this, and that's what we need.
The other benefit of doing that is the person is available in I think even this week during the day, so we could have that kind of first level screening during the day, either in person or by Zoom, and then just presuming the person survives it and makes it to the next level, then it would come to the select board.
And we only have one candidate right now that you feel is.
That's, yeah. The others are pretty far away and kind of,
You think an application just for the sake of an application for some of them?
possibly, yeah.
Have they got the qualifications?
The one that we're talking about, absolutely.
Huh?
The one that we're talking about right now,
Oh,
absolutely.
no, I read that one today. Yeah. I read the one you sent today.
Yeah.
But the ones, I saw the whole list, the ones out of state are just blowing smoke, or are they worth?
No, I mean, there's levels, but I mean, why they would choose to relocate to Bristol for this position would be a question.
Because we're awesome.
Because they don't have a job right now.
Well, that's, yeah.
You don't know.
Who knows?
So I would recommend, in terms of your first interview, would be to add a member of the community into that and a select board member.
Oh.
Okay. I think it should be more open. I don't think it should be as closed as the previous ones that we've done.
And I'd like to see a couple more. I'd like to see either Eric's been here a long time.
That's true.
I respect his he can kind of see. People. No, Eric can say, you know what, guys, I remember what Sharon said the last time. I remember what Sharon said when we were gonna hire a town treasurer. And we didn't hire him. I can remember what she said, and that stuck with me. And it was a good thing she said it too. But I just think, and maybe Brett or Eric Warren, they could sit in, or somebody too.
What about Bruce?
Or Bruce. Yeah,
actually,
I don't know.
Bruce.
Yeah.
Yep. If Eric doesn't want to, Bruce, yeah.
Who you think a community
He
member?
had no desire to, Eric, that's fine.
I mean, I will if you guys want me to, but
Yeah.
depending on the day, I may be busy anyways, if we may be storm or, so I don't wanna commit anything,
Okay, I respect
at
that.
least this time of year.
I know where your heart is, right on the
You
finger.
get me,
I get
my
that.
feet are going out however halfway.
So,
In terms of community, it could either, my thoughts were, if they're available, well, do you want to mention names or no?
no, I wouldn't, I don't.
Okay, I can talk to you about
Maybe you
that.
could email them to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Well, we could do those names quick in executive session.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay.
Yeah, because it's, I want to make it, I think it needs to be bigger than we've done it in the past in terms of the job application. We didn't ask for anything like written scenarios or ask questions of them. It's just a cover letter and references, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I think we need to do a little bit more, a bigger kind of scope in terms of what we're asking a candidate, because it's an important position. And I don't want us to go through the process and then find that we've missed something in terms of how we've interviewed or what we've asked of the candidate, things like that.
But you also don't wanna overwhelm them.
Right.
No, but it's the top position in the town, and it's managing, we've had it where we've hired people and they've left for whatever reason, and that's just you're trying to reduce that. And seeing as this is
Because of us, that's why Valerie's leaving.
pretty much. We've driven her away.
Oh, that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
There's a straw. There's a straw.
Yeah, but we can, let's have a little discussion, executive session.
Okay. And that, Valerie, do you have the bio on the other 4 or 7?
Yeah, I can give you a link to the others. Just to quickly summarize that the 3 from outer state are Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Beckett, Massachusetts, and Newton, Massachusetts. And so I guess there's 8 altogether. My spreadsheet didn't update the number, so there's 8. And then there's from Vermont, there's Brattleboro, Essex Junction, St. Albans, and Moncton.
Yeah, if you could share a folder with all those letters and reports or resumes, that would be great.
I will.
Just one more comment, please.
Sure.
Just wanna make sure that all these other people that you're bringing in, that we still, our opinions and whatnot have just the same amount of weight as somebody you bring in from the community.
Yes, I think the idea is to get as broad a
Right, but they
discussion.
may like them for one piece, and we may say, no,
Sure.
it's not, it may not work that way, or.
Right, and that's part of you want to set up, similar to what we did with the skate park, you want a scoring matrix that everyone follows, so you can all evaluate in the same way. And so everyone gets to be able to evaluate with their own thoughts. And then
I just don't want our opinions to get lost.
No, of course not.
We wouldn't do that to you.
I agree with you, sure.
I wouldn't do that to you.
All right. Anything else, Valerie, for the good of the order?
No, that seems to cover quite a bit.
Okay. All right, other business, we got any correspondence reports or received?
My report kind of summarizes what we've received. So there's stuff posted on the website.
Yeah, we did get an email about the PVC concerns for the water line.
I see that.
And so I didn't know if that had already been discussed or if there was information to share based on that.
PV concerns how? PVC
Oh,
concerns.
there's some
replacing-
company that's concerned about it leaking bad stuff into the water.
Right.
Yeah, I think a rat has to drink 1 million cups of water to get cancer. I
From
think
a
that's what-
PVC pipe?
From a PVC pipe, yeah.
So I can
that's-
send them to you.
Yeah,
You'll
sure.
share your rat research.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in the correspondence, is Steve's response.
Right.
which-
Oh, there is. Okay.
Yeah,
I got you.
yeah.
I received the
Yeah.
original email. That's
Yeah,
good.
so the original email is there.
Steve
and then
does
it was-
He
and
did
then-
respond.
yeah.
Okay, good. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah,
is
there's
that
a
somebody
lot of
responded.
detail about that.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
good. So I don't need to rely on Peaker's rat research.
No, I wouldn't.
No, he's got a lot of research
I
on
would
it. He's in the
definitely,
project.
look at Steve's response.
Okay.
The poor rat drowned before it died of cancer.
So how do you know how to drink that much then?
Well, because it was close.
He was down on the garage floor the other night when I went up looking for his rat. No. Looking
So
for a
that was
bolt.
the only one that I wanted to bring up to make sure it got a response.
Well, and also when during the, I believe, the West Street project and the Stony Hill Business Park project and the Pine Street project, and now also Bristol West and Bristol East, the subject of PVC for those water mains was discussed at various points, and different points of view, but in Steve's response, he points to certain sources and studies that have been done to kind of address that question.
Okay, that's great.
Unfortunately, with anything you have concerns about, you can find a study that goes one way and a study that goes the other way, so. you know.
Okay.
Regarding the correspondence, I'd like to thank, we had a couple of resignations from committees. I'd like to thank Anna Daly for her time on the Planning Commission and Betsy Blair for her time on the Equity Committee.
Yes, I did see that. Thank you. And did I hear there's another opening on the library board?
That'll be on your next agenda.
Yeah, I think there's one open position.
Yes, you
that can
did.
be filled.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it didn't make it in for today, though, not enough time.
Executive session, any besides?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Michelle?
I make a motion, we enter executive session for one VSA section 303.
213 right here?
No. Is it 313?
213, A and
13 to discuss personnel matters.
Okay. Are you here staying for us there?
For what?
Personnel matters? No. No.
Let him go.
Thank you,
Good
Jimmy.
night, Jimmy.
Good night.
And it's only 8:30.
Have a good night.
I know, I was going to point that
Quiet.
When you mention that, you jinx yourself, just so you know.
You jinx yourself.
Let's kick off.
So
let's stop
excited.
this.
Here, go.